Have you ever driven down a seemingly endless stretch of highway, lined with cookie-cutter houses and manicured lawns? It's easy to lull yourself into a sense of security, to believe that normalcy reigns supreme. But beneath the surface of even the most ordinary town, darkness can writhe. In 1987, the quiet hum of life in Russellville, Arkansas, was shattered by a chilling revelation. A man named Ronald Simmons, a pillar of the community, or so it seemed, unleashed a wave of violence that would forever scar the town's collective memory. Ronald wasn't born a monster. Dusty photo albums paint a picture of a seemingly ordinary childhood. Born in 1940 in Chicago, he grew up alongside his mother, Loretta, and stepfather, William Griffin, a stoic Army Corps engineer. Theirs was a life of routine and quiet duty, a stark contrast to the explosive events that would unfold decades later. His teenage years were unremarkable. He enlisted in the Air Force, a move not uncommon for young men of his generation. Vietnam loomed large, casting a long shadow over American society. Ronald served his country, even receiving a Bronze Star for his service. The details of his wartime experiences remain sketchy, but for many who return from the horrors of war, the invisible scars can be the most devastating. Back in the States, Ronald met Becky, a bright-eyed young woman with a hopeful smile. They married in 1960, their union a beacon of promise in an increasingly uncertain world. They settled in Arkansas, a place where the pace of life was slower, the air thick with the scent of pine needles and freshly turned earth. Soon, children arrived: a son, Ronnie Jr., and daughters, Sheila and Marianne. The Simmons family seemed like the picture of Americana: a loving husband, a nurturing wife, and a gaggle of rambunctious kids. But beneath the surface, a darkness festered. Neighbors occasionally glimpsed flashes of Ronald's temper, his voice rising in anger during seemingly innocuous moments. Becky, once so vibrant, became withdrawn, her smile replaced by a forced cheer. The children, once playful, learned to tiptoe around their unpredictable father. Alcohol became a constant companion, blurring the lines between discipline and abuse. Christmas 1987 arrived, a season traditionally overflowing with joy and togetherness. For the Simmons family, however, it marked the descent into a nightmare. The exact trigger for the horrific events that unfolded remains a mystery, lost in the wreckage of shattered lives. Was it a perceived slight from Becky? A festering resentment towards his children? We may never know. On December 23rd, the carefully constructed facade of normalcy crumbled. The details are too horrific to dwell on. A tapestry woven with blood and screams. One by one, over a period of several terrifying days, Ronald turned his rage on his own kin. His wife, Becky, the woman who'd stood by his side for decades, lay lifeless. His son, Ronnie Jr., a young man on the cusp of adulthood, was silenced forever. Even his innocent grandchildren, mere babes in arms, weren't spared. Their Christmas presents sat unopened, their dreams for a joyous holiday extinguished in a hail of gunfire. The violence didn't stop there. Driven by a madness that defied comprehension, Ronald ventured beyond the confines of his home. He targeted former co-workers, men and women who had once shared coffee breaks and office gossip. The quiet town of Russellville was gripped by fear. A seemingly random killer was on the loose, and no one was safe. On December 28th, the rampage mercifully ended. Cornered by police, Ronald surrendered, his eyes devoid of emotion. The subsequent investigation painted a horrifying picture. The seemingly ordinary man who volunteered at church picnics and coached Little League was a monster responsible for the deaths of 16 people. The trial that followed was a grim spectacle. The courtroom pulsed with an oppressive silence as the details of the murders were laid bare. The motive remained elusive, offering little solace to the grieving families. In the end, Ronald was found guilty and sentenced to death. In 1990, his sentence was carried out. He died by lethal injection, taking his secrets to the grave. The town of Russellville was left to grapple with the aftermath, a community forever haunted by the senseless acts of one man. The story of Ronald Gene Simmons is a chilling reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. It compels us to confront uncomfortable questions about domestic violence, mental illness, and the potential for even the most seemingly normal person to erupt into violence. There are no easy answers, only a chilling portrait of a man who shattered the lives of those around him and left a permanent scar on a once peaceful town. In the aftermath, the question that lingered on everyone's lips was, why? Mental health professionals were called in to analyze Ronald's behavior, searching for clues in his past that might explain the unimaginable. Some theories centered on his wartime experiences. Vietnam was a crucible that forged many heroes, but it also left deep psychological wounds on countless soldiers. Post-traumatic stress disorder, then a relatively new diagnosis, was explored as a possible explanation for Ronald's sudden descent into madness. Perhaps the horrors he witnessed overseas had finally boiled over, manifesting in a terrifying eruption of violence. Others pointed to his upbringing. His relationship with his stepfather, a man of rigid discipline, might have fostered a deep-seated resentment that festered for years. The lack of a strong male role model in his early life could have contributed to a sense of isolation and a distorted perception of masculinity, leading him to equate control with power. Still, others focused on the escalating domestic violence within the Simmons household. Neighbors who once heard raised voices now realized the chilling truth behind those arguments. The isolation Becky endured, the emotional abuse inflicted on the children, these were all indicators of a simmering rage that eventually exploded with devastating consequences. The truth, likely, was a complex web woven from multiple threads. Vietnam, his upbringing, the toxic dynamics within his family. All these elements may have converged to create a perfect storm of violence. But the focus wasn't solely on understanding Ronald. The spotlight also turned to the survivors, those left to pick up the pieces in the wake of the tragedy. Sheila and Marianne, the daughters who lost their mother, brother, and even some of their nieces and nephews, faced a future shrouded in grief. Extended family members grappled with the loss of loved ones and the burden of a shared history forever tainted by violence. The town of Russellville itself became a living memorial, a place where the echoes of gunshots seemed to linger in the quiet streets. Years passed, but the memory of those lost never truly faded. Local churches held memorial services, their stained glass windows casting a somber light on grieving faces. A makeshift memorial sprung up near the Simmons' former home, a collection of flowers, teddy bears, and handwritten notes offering a poignant tribute to the lives extinguished. The story of Ronald Gene Simmons isn't just about a horrific crime spree. It's a story about the devastating ripple effects of violence, the invisible scars it leaves on individuals and communities. It's a stark reminder that behind the facade of normalcy, darkness can lurk, waiting for the right moment to erupt. More importantly, it's a story that compels us to have difficult conversations. Conversations about domestic violence, about the importance of mental health support, about the need for intervention when warning signs emerge. We can't erase the past, but by learning from tragedies like this, we can strive to create a future where such senseless acts become less likely. The town of Russellville continues to heal. New families have moved in. Children play in parks that once echoed with the silence of fear. But the memory of that Christmas week in 1987 remains, a reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present battle between good and evil. It's a story etched in the collective memory, a cautionary tale whispered on the wind, a chilling echo that serves as a constant reminder to confront darkness wherever it may hide. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.